to teach Sundays a lot. Now I'm on Wednesday mornings, but I always like to come back to the Sunday group. So I'd like to just take a minute to express our gratitude for Heather and Cassie for hosting today, and just to let you know that that's a volunteer position and an act of generosity and a practice of generosity on their part towards the Sangha. So just want to thank you and appreciate you both. So what I thought we would do this morning is we'll have maybe a 30-minute guided meditation. I'll guide you in and then give you lots of kind of quiet time to practice and just try to cue you just here and there. And then I'll give a Dharma talk about regrets and um, then maybe we'll just lightly stretch just on our own for a minute or two, and then open the room for sharing your reflections and your feelings and wisdom about how to best approach regrets when they arise in your life. So once again, thank you for being here. And if you're ready, and when you're ready, you might begin to just start settling into your seated posture. As you begin to sense and feel your body in the seated posture, you might allow your spine to lift up through the back, to the back of the neck, and out through the crown of the head. Maybe rolling the shoulders down and back, letting them move just one last time, perhaps to settle. And as you roll those shoulders down and back, maybe you sense some more space in the heart area, in the chest. Maybe breathing into the heart space, creating more space there, and then breathing out. And then just letting the breath be natural. You might just take a few moments to just notice how you are right now, physically, emotionally, mentally. Bringing a spirit of gentleness and curiosity as you notice and feel what's here. As you receive your mind and body, you might pause here and begin to consciously arouse a sense of gratitude or appreciation. And just asking yourself, what are some small and big things that I appreciate or I'm grateful for. And let the warmth of that recognition of gratitude, of appreciation, gladden your heart, open your heart. And perhaps sensing your appreciation or gratitude for mindfulness, for the capacity to be wakeful and aware, for the teachings, and for the community, being a part of a community, a sangha. And now letting that gratitude linger in the background of your mind and heart. And then let the breath come to the forefront of your experience. Just beginning to notice where you feel the breath most clearly. And beginning to sense and discern how the in breath might feel differently than the out breath. Feeling the rising and falling of each breath as best you can. Maybe for a couple of minutes, I just invite you to do a little mindful noting. When you feel the in breath, just make a light whisper in the mind in. And when you feel the out breath, out. In this way, you can begin to settle and move out of being distracted by anything other than just the breath. You might ask, are you aware? And what are you aware of? Maybe the breath, maybe the mind is visiting some other place, maybe planning, rehearsing, daydreaming. Just inviting attention to come back to feeling the breath, resting awareness on the breath. Now, at this point, if it hasn't happened already, perhaps the mind is drawn to notice something is calling it or compelling it. And feel free when that happens to let the breath move to the background and let whatever experience calls your attention be in the forefront. Maybe you'll notice that you're aware of breathing and then some pain in the shoulder draws you there, or some emotion draws you to the heart center, or some vague feeling of pleasantness or unpleasantness draws you. When that happens, feel free to release the breath and turn and open towards that experience. Notice what it's like. Then when it's no longer compelling, just coming back to resting on the breath again. If you've noticed any sense of restlessness or agitation, sleepiness or boredom, maybe acknowledging those states of mind and noticing what they're like, how they affect you. And maybe reminding yourself that you want to be here, present and aware, undistracted, without pushing anything away or drawing anything close, but yet very intimate and kind towards your experience. If you're noticing the absence of calm, you might breathe in, calming the body, breathe out, calming the body, supporting the body and the mind and arriving at some calm, some settling, some composure, or just remaining with the breath, if that's easy and pleasurable right now. And with a little curiosity, asking what's happening now? What am I aware of? And how am I treating it? Just noticing without judging. How am I relating to this moment? Kindness, harshness, interest, boredom. Whatever's presenting itself, can I meet it with kindness, understanding, letting it change, letting it be? If you'd like, in these last 5 minutes, you might just return to being mindful of the breath, just returning to being aware of just that one thing, breathing in and breathing out. Letting the mind and body settle, collect, soften. In these closing moments, I invite you to bring to mind your loved ones and friends and the people in your community, people and people everywhere, all beings, seen and unseen. And in the quiet of your own heart, wish them safety, love, and peace. So please take your time coming back. Stretch and move in any way that would feel comfortable. Feel free if you want to take just a quick stretch of any kind, standing up for a minute, and then we'll begin the Dharma talk. So I just invite you to rest back and relax and just take in some of the things that I want to share, and if- take take what's helpful and useful to you, and the other you can just kind of let pass by. I named this talk "Acknowledging Regret Without Clinging," and so I hope to unpack that a little bit with you this morning. The inspiration for this talk came over the last six to 12 months. One thing that I've noticed, both being a mindfulness teacher and also in my long career as a therapist, I've noticed that there's like these waves of forms of suffering that show up, and they're different. And in the last 6 months to a year, the theme of regret has been coming up a lot. And I've been exploring this with people who really want to lighten their heart from some regrets that they have carried or do carry. And one person in particular, it was just really moving to sit with him, because he had realized he had a lot of awareness, and he had realized that he was that he was feeling melancholy. And he really, at that time, he really couldn't quite identify what the melancholy was all about. And as he continued to notice and explore his experience, he started to hit on some deep regrets, started to notice some deep regrets that he was carrying. And what I'm noticing is that we can have all kinds of regrets in everyday life, right? We can have a conversation with somebody we really care about or like or work with, and we know, and we leave that conversation. Maybe we felt like, wow, I was a little critical there, I was a little harsh, or I could have been kinder, something like that. And so those kinds of regrets, they can happen all day long. And there's other things we can have regrets about, right? Our educational choices, our career choices, maybe our choices in relationships, right? Like we can have regrets about all kinds of things, but I tend to experience, and I look in my own life and when I sit with others, I believe that the most poignant regrets revolve around significant relationships. Now that may not be true forever, but for everyone, but there's something that really gripping about those kinds of regrets. So today I want to, maybe rather than explore regret through the lens of psychology, I'd like to explore it through the lens of Buddhist teachings. And I want to mention four things about regret that from this Buddhist angle. So first, we could view regret as as a hindrance, just like the other five hindrances that we're taught about: desire, aversion, um, restlessness and anxiety, doubt, ill will, right? Sleepiness, or I would say lack of mental energy. It might not always be sleepiness, right? And that some teachers view regret as a hindrance. Regrets can take another aspect of the teaching, which is regrets can be a form of clinging to desire, a form of clinging to desire. And on the brighter side, if you will, regret can also be a wake-up call. It can wake up our compassion. It can wake up our compassion for the shared vulnerability of being human. So sometimes when we meet regrets and we hear others' regrets, that can wake up something very deep within us, because we realize that we too are part of that. We can have compassion for that. We don't have to block it out. And finally, regret can serve as a signal to pay attention. Right? So just to say that one more time. So regret could be viewed as a hindrance, especially to wisdom. It could be a form of clinging to desire. It could be a pathway to sincere and great compassion for yourself and others. And it can also serve as a signal that to pay attention to something, that maybe what you're doing or not doing is not skillful or helpful. So when you think of regret, what is it? For today, I'm just going to define it as an emotion. In Buddhist teachings, they might call it a mind state, a state of mind, because it comes and goes. It's not always there. But it can also have a quality of sadness and sorrow and distress about it. And it's about regret takes the form of what we did or didn't do. And some regrets, we know this from our own experience. We can make amends about certain regrets. We can apologize. We can commit to modifying our behavior and our attitudes. We can reach out and maybe build relationships or rebuild ones that have been hurt or damaged. We can maybe, if we're at a stage in life, we can still make changes to our health and our careers, our educational choices, how we spend our time. So some regrets, and I think it's important for us to remember that some regrets can be modified, they can be remedied. But then there's this type of regret that can't be remedied through action. Maybe people have died. Maybe they've cut us out of their lives. Or maybe it's just too late to change that particular area. And what's left for us to do is to change how our heart is holding that and our mind. So just to say a little bit more, to come back to regret as a hindrance, there's a sutta where the hindrances, whether it's desire, attachment, regret, anxiety, worry, they are described as overwhelmers of the mind. Overwhelmers, right? Like, so it gives you a sense that they kind of flood or they kind of take over the mind. They're also said to overwhelm or overpower wisdom. I think we know that experience. That might sound kind of high, like a higher reasoning kind of statement, but if we just drop into our own experience, we know that, right? When we're too afraid, too angry, feel too powerless or too shut down, it does temporarily, that's the key word, temporarily cut us off from accessing wisdom. So when regret's present, the hindrances and the teachings on the hindrance would suggest that first, you acknowledge when regret is present and when it's absence, right? We don't ignore it. We don't deny it. We don't push it away, but we say, oh, there you are. Okay. Or no, oh, I don't have any regret about that. One way or the other, we're noticing, right? And then how are we receiving it? Are we disliking it? Are we pushing it away? Are we being aversive to it? So regret as a possible hindrance to, that's one lens when you have regret that you could look at it through. The second is looking at regret and clinging. And this takes us to the second noble truth, right? The first noble truth is there is suffering in life. Suffering arises in life. It does occur. It's not the only thing that happens, but it happens. And the second noble truth, according to Buddhist teachings, is that the cause of suffering or dissatisfaction is clinging, is holding on too tightly. And I want to say here that that's, in my view, that's not what the mind, that's not what the personality does. That's what the mind does. There's that saying, the mind has a mind of its own. That's important to remember. The mind does this. The mind is a very complex, intelligent force. There's not a little I that sits in there and goes, oh, I'm gonna feel regret right now, and I'm gonna do a lot of things that I'm gonna regret later. It doesn't work like that, right? But sometimes once we've experiencing regret, we can start to hold on to it. And that's where the clinging takes place. And Philip Moffat, a Buddhist teacher, he says that regret is clinging to the desire that our past be different than it was. Regret is clinging to the desire that our past be different than it was. That might be a helpful piece of wisdom to recall when you feel caught up in a regret, is to just say, oh my gosh, there it is. There's the mind wanting this is my mind and heart wanting this to be different, wanting this to be another way. And of course you would, right? I mean, of course we would. We don't want to be sad and sorrowful and disappointed and feel bad and powerless over our ability to not change something. But if we don't notice that our mind is resisting it and defending against really looking at and exploring regret, we're really just going to reinforce the clinging. The clinging is just going to stay there. It's just going to strengthen in the mind. It's just going to stay and stay there. And from time to time, you'll just keep getting reactive or triggered about it. So if we're willing and we have the right support and conditions to explore, especially deep regrets, the energy of them, there's a real possibility that one day we will arrive to, I like to think of it as the gate of radical acceptance. You know, when people say, oh, just accept it, accept it. I don't know, in my experience, it's a blessing if that happens, that I radically accept something that's really difficult. But most of the time, it's felt like I've had to approach it and then come back, approach it and come back, approach it and come back. But someday, there's a real possibility that we'll arrive at the gate of radical acceptance. And we'll be able to say, not in a calloused way, not in an indifferent way or a harsh way, but with that sort of acceptance that says, that really happened. I did that, they did that. That was the effect, and that really happened. That's 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 what happened. And then in that, it's not that that full-on acknowledgement, it's almost as if the defenses start to relax. And we can allow that sense of surrender and grace to fill us, to fill our hearts, right? So I think of it as radical acceptance is almost like a defenseless. We've stopped the rationalizing, we've stopped the minimizing, we've stopped the argument between the two parts of our mind, that the part that feels bad about it and the part that tries to comfort the part that feels bad, and the back and the forth. So I wanted to share a story, and some of you've probably read this. It's appeared now in a couple of books, and I came across it again, and I was like, wow, that is still such a helpful story. And I am going to just say it could be a little bit of, I'm going to just put a little trauma warning, because I know that we can always have experienced something like this. And so I just want to not spring it on you. It's not horrible. It's actually an inspiring story. So if you've heard this, I hope you won't mind hearing it again. So when the Dalai Lama was doing his book, The Art of Happiness, he was interviewed. And in the interview, the Dalai Lama was asked if he had regrets. And he paused for a little while, and he shared a poignant moment where he advised a monk that he might be too old for a certain kind of practice. The monk had asked him about this practice and wanting him to help, and the Dalai Lama had said something like, well, it's usually something you start younger. Tragically, the monk took his life so that he could be reborn and pursue that practice. That was crushing. when asked how he dealt with this regret, the Dalai Lama said he didn't get rid of it. It was still there. However, he went on to say that it wouldn't be helpful to anyone if he let the regret weigh him down. It wouldn't be helpful to anyone, and I'm sure that included himself, to anyone for the regret to weigh him down. He said it was no longer a source of depression or discouragement. And he went on and he goes on with his life to the best of his ability. I just wonder how that lands in you right now, how that feels. What I make of this is that he must have really leaned in, and I imagine and maybe it's my story, but I imagine that he really leaned into that and he really felt it, and he allowed himself the space to feel that. And he then kind of was faithful to the teachings, to his path of awakening. And I'm imagining that he went right to what is skillful here. He went right to wisdom. What is skillful here? He consulted the wisest part of himself. What is skillful here? And he realized that the most skillful thing would be to continue to be able to be a benefit to others. And through his spirituality and his life of mind training, he was able to incline his mind in this direction. And speaking from my own personal experience, I really believe it takes a while. But I think if we're if we lean into what is most helpful, what is most beneficial, then I really believe it, at least in my own experience, I didn't drown. I didn't get overwhelmed to the point where I couldn't move forward. Because if that desire to want the past not to be here, for the thing to have not have happened, we must find a way to coexist with that, but not let it dominate us. So I'd like to spend the last half, or not even the last half, last 9-10 minutes or so. We'll do a little practice, but I want to mention one other thing about regret as a signal and a teacher. And I think this is interesting and helpful, that in Buddhism, regret is viewed as a normal reaction to actions that may have been rooted in distraction, or in other words, mindlessness, states of fear, anger, ill will, or shame, right? And that in those moments when we're dominated by these psychic forces, these mind states, we again lose connection with our deepest values, with the things that we aspire to and care about most deeply. A lot of times, that in a way, a regret tells you what really matters to you. If you lost your temper and you were kind of, lost it with your kids, and your mom, and you were yelled or something, and then later felt really regretful about that. Yes, that can be painful. And another way to look at that is, wow, I really care about being a good parent. I care about showing up in a balanced, well, and a healthy way with my children. I think sometimes we overlook that the regret is revealing what really matters most to you. And they certainly don't mean that we're bad or unredeemable. That's one of the saddest things that can happen, is when regret starts to descend into guilt and shame, where it says something about you as a human being. So this is just one quick example of how regret can help you kind of recommit to being more skillful, and can it's actually an inspiration for all of us to continue to practice our mindfulness and our curiosity, to learn to calm ourselves, to learn to slow down, to learn compassion and loving kindness. So a quick example, let's say you have a tendency to be critical. So from time to time, that critical part can take over and speak and act in ways that hurt you or hurt others. And when you feel the regret of that, you might say, "Oh, okay, this regret is telling me, is signaling me that I don't want this mind state to control me. I don't want criticalness to be sitting in the seat of my consciousness. I want my awareness and my wisdom and my love in that seat." And then you can start to make that a part of your daily life practice is, noticing when that critical mind and working with it and working with other friends and Sangha members to, you know, to help you with that. Many people have experience working with critical mind states. So just take a moment and take all that in for a second. And just inviting you to continue to bring that into your daily life when regret shows up. See how it can be like a hindrance. See if there's clinging, if there's wanting the past to be different. The desire for the past to be different is there. It's understandable. And you can hold both truths. It's understandable that you might want the past to be different. I, I think we could all get that. And is it useful? Is it helpful? Is it beneficial to cling to a desire that can't be realized? And then realizing that all of this can help, just like as something like the Dalai Lama went through, is that we can have compassion for ourselves and we can coexist and we can keep moving forward in our life in a compassionate, wise way, still benefiting ourselves, still benefiting others, even in the face of some very poignant losses or regrets. And then finally, just remembering to keep that, oh, here's a signal that I'm stepping outside of my integrity, stepping outside of my values, and I care about that. So thank you for your time and your listening. And I'd just like to invite you to join me in a little reflection. You might close your eyes if you like, or keep them partially open, whatever suits you. And if for any reason this feels like too much this morning, please take care of yourself. You can always mute me and just practice in silence for a little while. So you might just settle, feel your body sitting here, notice that you're in the sitting posture. Maybe taking a few conscious, calming breaths just to calm. And maybe just inviting your defenses to drop a little bit and see what's here. Begin to consider how you feel about acknowledging regret. Is that something you find yourself doing pretty readily? Or maybe you can't help but notice it. You might be curious with this question, how do you feel about sharing your regrets with others? What fears come up, if any? And are you still carrying any regrets that can sometimes arise and overwhelm you, or maybe you just want to ignore them or push them away? If you're now in touch with any regrets or discomfort around this whole subject, can you just simply acknowledge that and take a few moments to gently be aware of the felt sense of that in the body? Maybe in the chest, the upper belly, maybe a sense of heaviness. And having invited any regrets to arise, and having allowed yourself to feel whatever you feel, you might begin to breathe nice and slow. Maybe place your hand on your heart and offer yourself these words of compassion. In this moment, may I feel whatever I feel. Breathing in and out, may I feel whatever I feel. May the light of love ease my suffering. Breathing in and out, may the light of love ease any suffering. May I be at peace. May I be at peace. May I be at peace. And let's just rest here in silence for a couple of moments. Breathing in and out, receiving love and peace. And when you're ready, coming back. So I invite you just to stand and stretch now. You've been sitting for like an hour and 5 minutes, and then we'll just chat and share for 20 minutes or so. So please take a moment. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm thinking we should turn the recording off now.